If you're here, I assume that you have a solo performance coming up. You may be scared that you may forget the notes that you have to play. You may blank out on stage. You may feel like if you are not good enough to get a good job done. If this sounds familiar, if this sounds like something that you're going through right now, then this video is for you. Today, I'm going to give you 4 strategies that you can use to prepare effectively for the performance so that you would have the confidence that you need to not just ace that performance, but to also enjoy yourself while doing it. Before we get into any of these strategies, there is one thing that we need to talk about, and that is preparation, specifically how you're going to prepare, the mindset that you're going to use while you're preparing for this performance. What you're going to have to do is prepare more than you expect, prepare more than you think is necessary. There's a big difference between you learning a song in your bedroom, in a rehearsal space, and being comfortable playing it, and then you playing it on stage in front of a crowd. The space is going to be different. The sound of your steel pan is going to be different. You're going to be feeling a lot of different feelings: anxiety, nervousness, excitement. All of these things are going to influence the quality of your performance, which means that just knowing the song is not going to be enough to prepare for the environment that you're going to be in and the situation that you're going to be in when you're actually performing on stage. When you practice and when you prepare, you have to make sure that you don't just know the song, but you can play it consistently, you can play it reliably, and you can play it under different circumstances. That is what's going to bring the confidence that you need to ace your upcoming performance. So one of the end goals that we're going to be going for is learning the song and learning it well from the top to the bottom, but we're also going to be taking a few steps beyond that to further reinforce the consistency and the level of comfort that you need to be in different situations in order to ace your performance. So let's focus on that. Let's focus on learning the song. How are we going to do that effectively? By developing a solid practicing habit. We've all been there. You have a performance in 2 weeks and you lollygag for the first week and a half, and then you cram for the next 3 days, and as a result, the quality of your performance lowers. This is something that we already know. The more time that we give ourselves to prepare, the better the end result. So how do we use this knowledge? How do we make sure that we practice consistently? You're going to do 2 things. One, you're going to have a clear implementation intention. If you read the book Atomic Habits, you're going to know what I'm talking about. You need to know when exactly you're going to be practicing, whether it is on a specific time, let's say 7 p.m. every day, or 8 a.m. every day, or if it's going to be after you do something. For example, after you get home from work, or it could be the first thing that you do when you wake up in the morning. You also need to know exactly where you're going to be practicing, whether it's outside on your balcony, whether it's in your bedroom, if you have a specific place in your house that you usually practice, or if you have to go to a specific steel shed. The more clarity you give yourself as to exactly when and where you're practicing, the more straightforward it's going to be to start practicing, because you no longer have to think about it. You don't have to ask yourself questions as to when and where you're going to be practicing, because you already know. And the less questions you have to ask yourself, the more clarity that you have for yourself, the easier it's going to be to actually go practice. An example of an implementation intention would be, after I get home from work, I'm going to go into my bedroom and practice for 30 minutes. Another example, I'm going to practice my piece at 7 p.m. in my local pan yard. Again, the more clarity that you have about when and where you're practicing, the less planning and questions that you have to ask yourself throughout the day about when to practice, the easier it's going to be to get it done. You're not just going to use implementation intentions, you're going to also pair that idea with the 2-minute rule, again, from Atomic Habits. You're going to downskill your practice session, you're going to simplify it and make it easier to the point where it can be done in 2 minutes or less. A big thing that's going to hold you back is how daunting and difficult it's going to seem to actually start a new action. And if you can reduce friction by simplifying it, by making it into something that is extremely easy and extremely straightforward to get done, then that friction goes away. It's going to be easier to transition. That may simply mean playing the first 2 minutes of the song that you have to learn. That could also mean simply setting up the pan if it takes 2 minutes or less, going out to the balcony and beginning to set up the pan. Another great thing about the 2-minute rule is that it's going to put you into a mindset of practicing. By beginning the action, it's going to be easier to create momentum to continue doing the action than it is to be trying to get something more daunting done from scratch. A big reason why we feel like if we're not ready for a performance is because we do not take the time to get ready. And by using implementations and the 2-minute rule together, it's going to allow you to show up more reliably and more consistently to your practice sessions so you can put in the work to get the results that you want. Second thing, when you are practicing, do so effectively. You can spend 6 hours practicing something, but because you do not do it in an effective way, you won't see the same results as if you spent half an hour with more effective practice sessions. We don't want to feel like if we're wasting our time during practice sessions. We're not just going to work hard, we're going to work smart. So how does that look in the practice room? First off, you are going to slow things down. There are 2 different types of playing in music. There is the intentional, deliberate kind of playing when you're deliberately thinking about aspects of your technique. You're thinking about the specific notes that you're supposed to play and in the specific rhythms. This is slow, this is intentional, this is focused. There's practicing slowly and then there's practicing quickly. The point of practicing quickly is so that we don't have to think intentionally to get the stuff played. This is how we get the musical idea under our skin and turn it into muscle memory so that we no longer have to think about it. Your end goal is always going to be getting to the quick, automatic kind of playing where you no longer have to think about it. But a really big problem is that a lot of newer players try to get straight there, try to play the song at the BPM, try to get everything done perfectly without giving themselves time to think, without giving themselves time to sit down and understand the music that they're playing, the notes, the rhythms, the techniques that they're trying to use. The end goal is to get to the quick, automatic kind of playing where things are in your muscle memory. But in order to do that, we have to start slow. And this is how we're going to get it done. When we're practicing a piece, we're going to start at half of the original tempo. We're going to get comfortable there. And then we're going to go back up to the original tempo and practice it there until we are comfortable enough to play the song without having to think too hard about each individual note and rhythm that we're playing. If the piece is at 120 BPM, you're going to practice it at 60, you're going to get comfortable at 60, and then you're going to carry it back up to 120. Of course, the way that you apply this rule is going to depend on the song that you're learning. For example, if you're working on a power ballad that's super slow, it doesn't make any sense slowing that down even more. You already have the time to think. Instead, if there's a particular part of the song where you have to play a really fast line, or if the song speeds up for any reason and you realize that you're having issues with that, that is when you would slow it back down. That is when you would practice that particular part at half the tempo and then bring it back up to speed. You're also going to be finding more efficient ways to play the same piece of music. What tends to happen when we're learning a new piece is that we play it the first way that comes to mind. But the first way that we play something isn't necessarily the most effective way to get it done. In order to play more effectively, we have to approach the music with a mindset that allows us to use our hands with balance, ease of movement, and with efficiency. In the exact same way that we are being deliberate and intentional by playing slowly to learn the piece, we have to be deliberate and intentional by choosing the specific orchestration, the specific hand placements for each individual note. There are a series of guidelines that I personally use and that have reaped amazing benefits for me, but we can't get into this now because that's a whole other video. It's a video that I'm already working on actually, so if you want to stay notified when that video comes out, feel free to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that you know when that video comes up. The third thing that you're going to do is record yourself. You're going to have a different experience of your playing as a performer versus as an observer. When you're actually behind your pan and playing, you're not going to be able to hear things as objectively as if you are a third party watching your technique, listening to how you're playing. Sometimes you don't notice that you missed a note, you don't notice that your rules are not consistent, you don't realize that you're hitting some notes way too loud, hitting some notes way too soft. These are the nuances that you can't hear as a performer. That's where the value of recording yourself comes from. You're not just the player, you're also the coach. You're going to be able to critique the things that you're doing more effectively, which means you're going to be able to prepare, correct, and improve more effectively, which means that you're going to increase the effectiveness of your playing, increase your confidence, increase the chances of having a more effective performance. Number 4, this one is different. Everything else before this was focused on Preparation through practice, making sure that you practice consistently by developing a good habit, making sure that you practice effectively, making sure that you record yourself so you can critique yourself and improve more effectively. This one's going to be focusing more on the emotional side, focusing more on the mindset side, focusing more on the feelings that you get when you're on stage that you don't get when you're practicing, and how to mitigate against that, how to get comfortable with them, how to overcome them and move past them, so that your anxiety, so that your fear, so that when you're terrified, these things do not prevent you from showcasing yourself to the best of your ability. You're going to prepare for that by lowering the stakes. You're going to get used to performing in environments that are similar to the one that you are preparing for. By doing that, you're going to get used to your anxiety and your fear in a more controlled setting. And telling you from experience, anxiety and fear is something that can be overcome through exposure. The more you do it, the more you get used to it, the less control and power those feelings have over you. Here's what you can do. You can record a simple video of you playing the entire song. You can post that in a group chat with your friends or your family. That by itself is going to help a lot, because there's a huge difference between recording something for yourself and recording something for other people. You know, there's the fear of whether or not they're going to like it, whether or not you're going to do a good job. That isn't always going to be there if you're just recording for yourself. Depending on your school and work culture, you can ask to play at the beginning of morning assembly or during one of the work meetings that you have. If you're in any clubs or extracurriculars, you can ask to perform that song at the start of any fundraising event or any meetup that they're doing. You can play at your church, or you can get together your friends and family, set a date and play for them. So when it comes time to play, you're already going to be acquainted with those feelings, and they're not going to dictate how well you do, because you're used to them and they no longer have control and power over you. Once you do these 4 things, this preparation is going to be a cornerstone that you can rely on, and that's going to ground you and give you the confidence and the security that you need to ace your next performance. Thank you so much for watching this video. If it gave you value, be sure to like it, subscribe, send it to friends you think it would help. Again, thank you for your time and enjoy your day.